We know other people are going to join us in, but we have so much to talk about, and really a good, rich conversation here tonight. So I don't want to shortchange Lisa or Dr. Kris, either one. So yes, let's get the going.
Okay, so fantastic. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine Haskins. I'm one of the co-founders of the Bridge Club. Brenda will be talking here in a moment. But we just want to remind everybody a couple things about the Bridge Club. First and foremost, this session is being recorded. When you came in, you were asked to make sure that you knew that it was being recorded, that we do actually unmute all of you. If you've got some background noise, go ahead and mute yourself. If there's some noise going on, you may suddenly find yourself muted because we're trying to figure out where that noise is coming from. But this is an open engagement opportunity. I do encourage you to open up your chat function. If you're unable to verbalize your question, please put it in the chat and the questions. We will then push those forward to Dr. Kris as we're going along. Other than that, let's buckle down and have an incredible evening.
All right, so everyone, I'm Brenda Andreessen, another co-founder of the Bridge Club, and everyone in this conversation tonight is acutely aware of the prevalence of depression, the feeling of being alone, the feeling of being overwhelmed that tends to plague us in the veterinary profession. So tonight's conversation is particularly timely, given what's going on with COVID and the challenges that we're facing. And now more than ever, we really need to be present for each other. So it really is a little bit of serendipity that the timing of this conversation worked out the way it did. So Catherine and I are really feeling very blessed tonight that we have our friends from Banfield Pet Health here. We've got Lisa Stewart-Brown. Lisa, you want to raise your hand and wave a little bit?
Hi, everyone.
And Lisa is the Banfield's Mental Health and Wellbeing Program Director, and you'll be hearing from her a lot tonight about some really important information.
Welcome to the Nationwide Substance.
And we also have Dr. Kris Piland-Rice. Kris?
Hi, guys. Hello.
And Kris is the Vice President of Veterinary Quality at Banfield Hospital. So Lisa and Kris are going to provide us with their really tremendous insight and experience on the what, the why, and the how of Banfield's extraordinary ASK training program that was launched just this last January. Gosh, January seems like a bazillion years ago, but it was really just a couple months ago. And talk about how it can benefit each of you, whether you're in veterinary practice or not. So as Catherine mentioned, I just really want to reiterate quickly here, the goal of the Bridge Club is to help veterinary professionals connect and engage and learn and grow. And the well-being of this profession is something that is critically important to Catherine and me. We love the people in this profession, and you're all very important to us. So with that in mind, we want to make sure tonight that each of you feels physically safe and emotionally well, and that you have resources available to you to help you and any loved ones or colleagues who might be needing any support during this time of crisis. So we emailed prior to this a one-page resource document. We'll be sending that to you again after. But if you want to talk with anybody privately during this conversation, put it in the chat specifically to Lisa Stewart-Brown, and she will make sure that someone reaches out to you and has a conversation with you after we're finished here. So seriousness aside, let's really dig into a very proactive and positive resource that's available to us now. So we start every Bridge Club with a toast. And Lisa, would you do our toast for us this evening?
Well, thank you so much for having Dr. Kris and I here today. We feel really honored and privileged, and I know it's strange to say excited about this conversation, but I truly am, because there's a lot of hope in what we're going to talk about today. So my toast is one of my very favorite quotes from one of my very favorite pioneers in mental health. Her name is Virginia Satir. And she was born in the 1920s and passed away in the late 80s. And she really was the one that brought family therapy to life in all kinds of new, out-of-the-box ways. And her quote is, and it's very, very timely with what's happening in our world as well. So life is not what it's supposed to be. It is what it is. The way that we cope with it is what makes the difference. So here's to finding ways to cope to make the differences you want in life today.
Cheers. That's really good.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Don't forget to drink.
Yeah, everyone has to drink. When you toast, you have to drink.
You must. right. So, Lisa, I really want to start this conversation with you this evening because you were so instrumental in the development of the ASK program, which stands for Assess, Support, and Know. And it really is a first of its kind training program that was developed specifically for veterinary professionals, right? To help them recognize and address emotional distress and physical distress. So quick raise of hands for everybody. How many of you either know now or have known someone who you felt could use some kind of support and assistance? Just quick.
Yep.
All right. So Lisa, knowing that you're a licensed clinical social worker, you've got a master's degree in social work, tell us why it's so important to have these tools to put what we're saying is in the hands of the strong so we can help those who are struggling that we care about.
All right. Thank you, Brenda. First of all, I just want to contextually remind everyone that suicide is a universal issue in the world, in the United States. In the United States, it's the second leading cause of death for those ages 10 to 34. And then within our profession, veterinary profession, our female doctors are 3.5 times higher rates of suicide than the general population, and our male doctors are 2.1 higher. We have some early studies on our vet techs, and they look about the same, if not worse, for our male vet techs. So we know that this is happening. We also know that veterinary professionals are really a tight-knit community, regardless of the practice we work in. It's a club, and we've got some incredibly passionate, smart, dedicated people. So the concept behind ASK is to really leverage those around the person that's in emotional distress or even feeling suicidal to recognize when they're not quite themselves, what that looks like, what that sounds like, what that feels like, and then to give a guide, tools to really easily understand how to lean into those conversations and actually have those conversations. And so we really wanted to do that because when people are in those situations, especially when they're to the point where they feel suicidal, oftentimes it's impossible for them to raise their hand and ask for help. They just cannot do it. So it's super important.
So tell us a little bit about the rationale behind the training. I mean, you said that when we do in our little runner show that Banfield Associates had asked for help and it had asked for something like this. And then the organization responded with this framework that was by intention kind of positive and hopeful. So would absolutely love to have you talk about the rationale behind it and then talk with us a little bit about what the ASK training looks like.
Absolutely. So, when I came to Banfield a little under 2 years ago, spent a lot of time listening, a lot of time in the hospital, a lot of times with our leaders. And what I continually heard was that these conversations were taking place. People were talking about feeling suicidal. And our leaders were trying to do their best, and they asked for help. They asked for training. And so we wanted to create a training that fit within our culture of that medicine and was easy to remember, and you didn't have to be a mental health expert to do it and do it well. And it fit with something they already knew. So A stands for assess, right? What's going on here? Let me figure out the situation. And that's through open-ended questions. And then support the person through active listening skills and being empathetic, which again is something that our folks do really naturally. And then when out of scope, refer to somebody who is in scope, right? Know those resources and how to use them. So it's a 1, 2, 3 process. And the acronym itself is really intentional because I think the first hurdle is it my place to ask these questions? Is it my business? Is it okay? And so ask implies permission. And yes, it's better than okay, and to do that. So the ASK training is literally an interactive e-learning that takes through the steps of the training after you learn the warning signs and risk factors and what that looks like, and teaches these concepts that are really straightforward and not complicated. and then shows you how those conversations can look and sound like through videos that take place in actual exam rooms in the hospitals. So although I say it's an easy concept, by no means are these easy conversations, right? But it's the framework that builds the confidence, the knowledge, and the capability to let people lean in and just go with their heart, and because they know what they're doing, right?
Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Yeah, along the way. Does anyone have any questions right now before we dig into talking a little bit more about how it's actually working in practice?
So I just want to clarify the ask, because as you were going through it, so I do want to make sure that the A, the S, and the K, can you really go through those for us? Because I think that may have gotten lost a little bit.
Absolutely. So A stands for assess. When you recognize a sign or a symptom, or somebody's crying in the corner, having an anxiety attack in a surgery, or just not themselves, and you get that kind of, I don't think this is right. Or they're making cryptic statements like, I'm done, you'll never see me again, I'm out of here. To just pause and say, hold on, and when you said that, can you help me understand what you meant by that? So open-ended questions to really understand what am I seeing, what am I hearing, what does this mean? And oftentimes it's not someone suicidal, but it opens that door to have these really important connected conversations that are so supportive and so important in this profession, because every day there's a multitude of situations that come up that you could spend 50 minutes in therapy talking about. I mean, they're so intense, right? And so checking in with people is never wrong, and it's always helpful if done with an open heart. So then the support piece is, obviously keeping people safe physically if they're truly at risk, but supporting them in a way that is, listening to them, empathizing with them, not fixing, not solving, not taking over, not telling, but just really being present and listening and empathizing. And I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And then the K is know the resources and how to use them, okay? Because it's not just, oh, here's a number, call. It's like, look, there's this great resource called our Employee Assistance Program. This is what happens. I can make that call and go through all the preliminary, hand you the phone and walk out and leave you, to finish the call, or you tell me what'll help. But really engage in that and know how to use those resources in meaningful ways to connect that person to it. Just make it a bit easier. And again, not being dictating, but being truly engaged and helpful in the ways that are meaningful and feel helpful to that person.
I think the K was the one that kind of led off, and I mean kind of dropped off. And I think the K is the most important piece, because it helps you inform the S and the A, at least from my knowledge base. So I truly thank you for going back through just to make sure we got all the letters, because I think the K is really critically important.
Thank you. And it is. The icon itself, Catherine, has the heart over the K on purpose, because that's the healing piece, right? Connecting to that next step, connecting to that support is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's really important. Absolutely. Anybody else have any quick questions? And then we're going to dig into, how it is really working in practice. Feel free to unmute and speak up, or pop it in the chat if you don't want to speak up.
I do have a question. Especially in this time with things that are going on, I feel like for the most part, everyone's going through this anticipatory grief or whatever feelings that they can identify with. And I've opened up, I believe, that platform to be accepting of those feelings, which I appreciate. And so then, yes, I've given them this information with like the EAP and things along those lines, and shared some things that maybe I utilize in my daily practices. But for those that are kind of living and stuck in like romancing with the fear, I would say, is there anything else that you can really implement aside from giving them support? Because at some point I feel like that energy does like morph around other team members. So if you have any suggestions for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great call out, and really using it in all the ways that you shared are spot on. And grief is how I make sense of what's happening in the world right now. And we have experiences of grief on many ways, the events that we can't do, the people we miss, our old normal life, people that have died, just in general. There's all sorts of grieving moments. And just like grief, there's those stages of anger, acceptance, denial. We're going to go through them, maybe minute by minute, day by day, week by week, and ups and downs. The way that I kind of categorize it with my family is today I feel normal. And then there's I can't even feel my feet on the ground days. I just don't feel normal, and I can't get out of my head. And I just proclaim it and announce it and accept it. And I think giving grace to ourselves is super helpful. The other thing, Amy, back to more specifically your question, is because of this new normal, our boundaries are all out of whack. For those of us that went to work, we had work. When we were at home, we have home. Now we've got 2-year-olds bouncing in our Zoom screens, spouses on, phone calls, dogs and cats and God knows what else. And we're trying to create space. And so boundaries are super important, and calling them out to each other, almost like, hospital teams doing team huddles, right? You can have a huddle with your family at dinner in the middle of the day, or kind of coordinating. But with our teams, with those that we're supporting, it's important to know 2 things. One is that we're in the crisis too. So we are in it. And yet we're supposed to support, just like first responders who experience it. Okay, this is different than it happened over there and I'm supporting somebody. We're in it. So we have to acknowledge that for ourselves. And sometimes we have something to give and sometimes we don't. And we have to know when we don't, and how to pull away and ask somebody else to step in if at all possible. Number 2 is turn it around to the other person and empower them. Asking questions. What have you tried? What would you like to try? Have you reached out to anyone else? What do you think you're going to do next? Who owns the problem? And let them solve it. Sounds like you're really kind of stuck. That stinks. I'm sorry. Let me know if there's anything you need from me. You come up with the solutions, and I'll meet you there if I can in any way, shape, or form. But I'm not going to fix it. I'm not the one that comes up with these magic answers. Does that help, Amy?
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. That empowerment piece, just that little flex in that is very powerful. So thank you.
And I'll back that. I think the questions, it's not a judgment. It's not a advice. It's not a, let me solve this for you. Instead, it is very much putting it back, empowering on them. That is incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm. And that's that first part of ask too, is active listening, and then those open-ended questions that are universal for these conversations, Amy. And especially when people kind of get in this old, behavior in crisis, you'll see the best and the worst of people, depending on the day and depending on the moment. And we all can be in either camp, right? So really trying to not own it and try to fix it is that boundary for us fixers. And I'm in that category.
Lisa, I think that was a really big thing about the program when we rolled Ask, and with our hospital leaders and our field leaders, that it put those types of concepts and tools in their hands, that they knew they didn't have to fix it. But the resources that we have and that we supplied for them give the person the power and are empowered to leverage those to help solve their own problems and allow us to continue to support them. through that and be there for them.
Love that.
That's a
Love that, Dr.
Gotten a
Kris.
lot of that feedback. Yeah.
So,
Go
may I
ahead, Rebecca. Go ahead,
Thank
Rebecca.
you. My comment is just starting off with that, having these conversations with your team in those lower risk conversations and helping them know that this is a safe place, and then moving into the what I would call higher risk conversations. So having those team huddles and saying, hey guys, just tell me how you're feeling. Like, really, how are you just feeling? And then open these up just so that they can have a trusted, safe space to know that I can express the way I'm feeling without judgment, without being shunned. We're all in this together. I have to start out with low risk conversations so that we can have those higher risk conversations.
Completely.
Love it, Rebecca. Love it.
You know, one part of the assessment piece or the ask piece that I got from my field leaders is during the assessment piece, there's a lot of things that people say, but then there's so much more that they don't say. And how more acutely they were able to recognize some nonverbals. You know, you might, I'm fine, but you know their nonverbals were telling you that they weren't fine and that the situation wasn't fine. And how often they had told me where, you know, I would have accepted that and walked on. And now they don't. Because now they take another step back and take a look at that, well, things aren't okay. So let's connect here. Let's find out what's going on. And to your point, the open-ended questions really have helped out with those conversations and gotten some people some help or some direction to some help that we wouldn't have reached before.
So I think that's a really nice segue, you know, Dr. Kris, into talking a little bit more with everyone about how the program is working within Banfield hospitals. What else you guys have recognized, and you know, a little bit about how the training was implemented, how you made it simple, and the impact that it's having, especially now, you know, the way things have been the past couple of weeks.
Yeah. So, you know, I loved how, you know, Lisa just did a fantastic job with this program. But one thing that I absolutely loved about it, it was never mandatory. It was never required, because you have a gamut of people that are in a lot of different places to be open to this type of material and talk about it. And then we've known about compassion fatigue for some time. We know that depression and suicide is a part of our veterinary profession. But we open the door to, this is here for you. We want you to partake in it, but we let them do it at their own time and at their own pace. I think it was in November, we had 5,000 associates already that had jumped on and did the e-learning portion of ASK training, and they absolutely loved it. And then from there, we actually started focusing on being your best, and it was more about self-care. And it was a 2-hour session that we had in our hospitals, to where we actually let our hospital teams shut down for 2 hours during the day, whatever time of day they chose to do this with, and let them talk about different scenarios, skill sets, kind of practice them, but how they could focus on themselves and keep their healthy mind going, because that's part of our big focus, is having that healthy mind. And the response to that was incredible. I've had so many positive responses, and then others where it was like, I didn't know it was going to impact me so. You know, I didn't know I was going to actually get emotional about this. But overall, it just opened the door to saying it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help. And when there were several practice managers or hospital leaders that said, I just finished the training, and I actually had an associate come up to me and say, I need help. I need some help. And they were there to listen. And they said, I felt so empowered because I knew what to do. I knew where my resources were. I knew where and how to guide them to those and support them in doing that. And it just took our people to a different place of feeling much more confident about handling maybe some of these tough situations that come up, realizing I'm not a counselor, but I do know where I do know what our resources are. I do know where I can truly get you some help and
I
help
think it's
support you through that.
I think it's so cool about this too is that this is available to all veterinary professionals, right? And it's absolutely free.
Yes, it is. It is.
Can I say, I think being open to being vulnerable, I think that's one of our biggest challenges right now, right? Is how do we, I don't even know, because I think sometimes we think we're all so strong and we go into practice and we're like, I can put on a solid front, but how do you create that full environment? Yeah, you could go ahead and like you guys did, which I think is fantastic, but really make it a safe place. I think that's the hard challenge, right?
It is, and it's really cultivating a culture of not being afraid, of being unafraid. And I'm speaking for my teams and I guess for many others that where we've worked very hard in creating a culture of safety. And safety just not in conversation, but in what we do every day when it comes to the lives of pets. And this is just kind of transcended into the lives of our associates because we do put people first. And it does take some time to do that. But we spend a lot of time with our people. Our hospital leaders, our field leaders spend a lot of time with their teams to try and develop this culture of it's okay. And a lot of these teams, I think if you think about your hospital teams and the people that you work with, I mean, sometimes you spend more time with them than you do at home. And I know, two of my people that I worked with were in my wedding because they were my closest friends. But it does take some time, and it takes us being vulnerable in that situation too. Sorry, Lisa.
No worries, Kris. I love everything you're saying, and I just wanted to add that part of that I can fix it, I can make it better is part of the job, right? You have to believe that, you have to project that. That is part of the job. So switching that off and being vulnerable, it doesn't necessarily come natural, and it hasn't really been something that is breathed into the culture. So it's a change. It's a big change. And one of the reasons that we shut down our hospitals for 2 hours was because we wanted each individual hospital team to start using words like emotional health, mental health. And then we wanted them to practice out loud, because these are different vocabulary. So we had teams that brought out Kleenex and thought it was going to be really heavy, that ended up laughing hysterically and posting on Instagram and feeling really close with each other. The second part of that training was all about self-care, because ASK is a piece of suicide prevention. It's a piece of a huge puzzle. It's throwing a lifeline to people that need it, who are drowning, right? And we're teaching people to see them drowning and throw a lifeline and pull them in. What's more, our goal is to teach people how to take care of themselves, truly, authentically embrace self-care. And now more than ever, we all have to do that, right? Or like I think it was Catherine, you said we won't make it, right? We just won't make it. So super important to that cultural change.
It's happening to everyone right now, and people that may not be prone to having more negative thoughts may be having. Poor Brenda had to deal with me the other day. I'm not going to lie. I was not doing well. And so Brenda had to take me out of it. So I think the reality is this is very real. And I work from home. I mean, it's not like I don't work from home, but I think the anxiety of everything is piling on. So take a normal work environment. This is absolutely valuable. You put what we're under. This is a societal value.
Catherine, I work from home. It's not the same. It's not,
it feels
not been the same at all. It's way
Dana, thank you, because I'm feeling like I'm weird over here. I'm it should be normal.
Crazy.
It's not at all.
Really good point though, Catherine. And the fact that this is available, and we talked about this, Lisa, earlier this week too, that this is foundational. It has been created by Banfield for some of the aspects of the veterinary profession, but it truly is foundational to everyone. So it's great if everybody shares it out with anyone they know who could potentially use it. And I love the whole idea of saying, when you're feeling strong, that's when you need to be prepared to help those who aren't having the strong moments. And because your turn is coming when you're going to be the weak one at some particular point too. It's, we're all
absolutely. Lisa, I thought you brought up some really great points, because I can tend to I get very enthused about the things and the connections that we make with our people. But, even to your point, you're going to have those that aren't going to be that vulnerable. But I think I'm that kind of person. I'm going to keep trying to make that connection with my people because they care. And I see that group of people around me that truly do care and keep trying to make that connection with their people. So, but it is, to your point, it's cultivating that environment and using those terms that people get more and more comfortable.
So the last. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, for many of you, when we first jumped into this conversation, we asked, we're all starting with the very heartfelt, how are you doing today? And we all mean it. But then what comes? Right? So we're good at the first question, but then what?
Absolutely.
So Lisa, point you want to make, I just want to make a quick one. Usually Catherine and I try to keep these at about 25 to 30 minutes and just say, hey, those of you who've been with us multiple times before know that it's absolutely okay for you to jump off when you have to, because we know that we have life too along the way. But we really, really would encourage anybody who's available to stay on. We want to continue this conversation a little bit longer. And, we've got so much more rich content that Lisa and Kris can share with us. And we want to hear what you guys' questions are as well. Shall we officially move into the after party now?
Oh my God, I totally slacked on my job. I've been too busy.
Are we after partying?
So wait. I have to do this.
Oh yes, 25 minutes. This is what happens when we get so into the conversation with everything. And there is, we knew there was going to be a lot of really good information to be shared here. And it's really important that those of you who took the time to be with us tonight have a chance to ask some questions of Dr. Kris and of Lisa about the program and how it's working. So that's kind of what the after party is all about. So we'll do that for a few minutes. And then we always end every Bridge Club with the toast too, because we want to send everyone away with a positive, happy, and inspired feeling. So we'll chat for a few minutes more, and then we'll do the parting toast and send everybody off to their evening. So who's going to be the brave soul who speaks up first here now during the after party? Oh, Catherine, let's pick you.
Catherine's got her hands up.
I'm so such a wallflower. I actually do have a really important question, because I feel like this is what people face in normal life. The negative Nelly, the person who tells you things are horrible, despite your effort to try to just inquire, but there doesn't seem to be an end to the, I don't know, how do you resolve that? How do you still make sure that they know that you're there for them? But I feel like it just keeps going downward.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what Amy, your question, right, is it's very similar in that it's okay if people don't want to change. It's okay if they don't want to find solutions. It's okay if they want to, sort of sit in the issue, right? And so, again, open-ended questions. Let me know if there's anything you can think of that I can do. Let me know if you want to think about solutions together, or, thank you for sharing. It really sounds awful. I'm sorry you're experiencing those things. So you be real and you listen, you support, but they own the problem and the issue. And if it's not that they're in crisis or they're actively unsafe, but they're just emotional and they're just kind of swimming in it, which happens. And they need to swim in it. So it's okay for them to swim in it. today we were talking on another call, and someone mentioned, you know, when you can't fix it, just witness it. Just witness it. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I think that's good. We've got a couple questions, so we're going to go with the harder one before we go to Amy's, which we'll come back to Amy. But how do you facilitate this? How do I, like, if I don't feel like I'm qualified, how do I facilitate this conversation?
Well, and the Ask e-learning is self-contained. So if you're having a conversation with an individual, you know, you follow what the steps are in Ask, which is the open-ended questions, empathy, and the resources. If you're trying to bring others into this conversation to take Ask, I think that, you know, one is, are they comfortable taking it? You can share with them what it is and the why behind it, and ask if they've got questions, concerns, worries. The e-learning itself, too, will prompt people to self-select out. You know, if this is something you're struggling with, if you just lost somebody to suicide, is this the best time for you, or is it maybe better for you to come back and here's a resource for you? Does that answer that question, you think, Catherine?
So Marty's the one who posted. I don't mean to call Marty out, but she's an old timer with the Bridge Club. So I feel like I have the authority to do so. So I'm going to unmute you, Marty, to make sure. Can you wait? You have to unmute you, Marty. There you go.
Yeah.
Hi, Marty.
Hi. I just feel like this is beyond the scope of what I'm comfortable doing. So how do you, in all the practices that you're affiliated with, manage this? Like, you can't do it in person. So do you do it? What do you do?
That might be a good.
No, Marty.
Right.
I'm sorry, Lisa. I mean, but that could be a good one for Dr. Kris too, because I'm sure, Dr. Kris, you didn't come into the feeling like, yeah, baby, I got this. I'm going to, you know.
Of course I do. No, of course I do. You know, there's so many different layers of leadership within our organization, right? And we start with the hospital core team, you know, with the practice manager, with our chief of staffs or lead doctors that are there. And because this is, for me, and I know for many of our associates, this is very personal. And they do become very intimately involved with each other as far as like friendships and things like that. So when you try and you're going to try and tackle this thing, you can't tackle this thing with like 600 people. You just can't do it. You don't have the bandwidth. You do have to break it down into the individual groups or the individual hospital groups. And then they take it down to their people because they know their people. They spend that time with them. So that's really how we look at, I don't want to say communicating that message. You know, we talk to our field leaders. Actually, I talk to my DBQs in the same fashion because they're under so much pressure. They're not immune to anxiety, depression, suicide, because they deal with this quite a bit, and we deal with people quite a bit. So and then translating that down to the hospital team of you got to take it one bite and one step at a time, with one person at a time, and one team at a time, and find out, where can I help support you in delivering this great program or this great information that can help? Hopefully I answered that question in that. Because it was a little ambiguous, but yet.
Yeah, I love your question, and I just want to add two quick things. One, Marnie, is that everybody starts this journey in a different place. We had doctors say, oh my God, I can't believe I've been waiting for this forever. And other doctors on the other end of the spectrum go, this is not my business and I don't want to do it. And everything in between. And wherever people are, they are. One of those scenarios in the training, Marty, actually shows a doctor meeting a doctor in the parking lot and knew something was not right, but kind of freaked out and went and got the practice manager. And the practice manager and the doctor actually sat down with the doctor. And that's ask, right? If you grab somebody, or you actually go somebody and say, I don't know, something's wrong, you do it. That's okay too. So wherever you are, because this is not your expertise. This is not in your wheelhouse. And for some, it's going to feel like they want to do it, and others, it's going to be really not something they're open to or feel comfortable doing. But I would still take the training and see. Good question, Marty.
Really
Thank
great.
you for asking that. It's a really important question.
Well, here's another really good one too. Another really good one, right, that we're going to dig into. So if you're the holder of the information, if you are the owner of the practice or the practice manager or the person who says, I'm going to take this upon myself to take this program and be prepared, how do you keep yourself from being the one who starts to sink? I mean, how do you not take all that on and shoulder it? And I know you said kind of, give them the power back and empower them to solve their own problems. But, I'm sure this is like a lot of psychotherapists end up walking home at the end of the night just so totally depressed because they've heard everybody's everything. So what do they do in that case?
Yeah, really good question. A couple things. I think those in veterinary medicine and social workers have a lot in common. At the end of the day, we both have a lot we could dump about, right? So one of my wishes is that anyone that ever had a conversation and used ask, after that interaction, after that person is with their resources, the conversation's over, is the person that did it would go have a conversation with somebody, a person that they trust, a person they can say whatever they want to say about what just happened, because in many ways it's traumatic to have these conversations. Our cortisol flips up. I mean, it's anxiety. Even for me as a trained mental health professional, every time I have one of these truly life and death conversations, I need to go debrief with somebody because I'm a bit traumatized because I'm caring and I'm there and it's emotional.
So Karen has something she wants to jump in on, and I feel like we keep missing her. So Karen, jump on in.
It's very much in the same vein of that, I used to feel very out of my element with this stuff, and I've taken some peer support trainings, and it's helped a lot, and just kind of getting in the practice of doing it helps a lot. But now I feel like I've flipped onto the other side where I'm having a hard time with those boundaries and with not exhausting myself in, being the fixer, in being the one putting out all the emotional energy, and so that's where, trying to find the line between those two, I think is really difficult, especially when you may be dealing with people who you've gone through the ask points with them and they continue to have issues, and that's through no fault of their own, but where are you drawing those boundaries?
Yeah.
Super good point. Really good point. And those of us that are really empathetic and good with people draw that. I mean, I can go out to the store and people will tell me all kinds of things, and I'm not asking. I just have one of those faces, I guess. So figuring out, well, and just, it's like with pets too. It's like, oh, you're a vet. Hey, can you look at this thing on my dog? Right? I mean, you can, although your friends call, it's the same kind of thing, right? So I think really listening to yourself is super important. What are those telltale signs when you're reaching your limit? When do you know, like, you feel like, I'm crossing this boundary? I really am moving into therapist here versus peer support. And how can I stop myself? And can I just call it out? It's like, I'm not an expert. Is this my cue to myself? I'm not an expert. I can support you as a peer. It sounds like this is more serious. Does that sound like it to you? Are you open to getting some professional support and really switching it into solution and what's next steps? Okay, because I've reached my capacity and my scope. But part of that is truly kind of finding that within yourself. And it takes time because you've expanded your knowledge base in an amazing way. But maybe you need to constrict it a little bit more, it sounds like. And especially now, right? especially now.
So
But
I would say, Lisa, that's probably the greatest advice, at least as we know, we live with these people, right? Like they're in your day-to-day life. They're no longer just, and potentially, again, Marty, I'm just calling you out because I love you. But the idea that that your people are no longer just employees, they are your family, right? And this could be a colleague, this could be a family member. But the point of being able to say to someone at some point, you know, this is beyond the scope of you and me having a conversation. Should there be other help engaged? I think is really powerful to give everyone, and I'm not an empathetic person in general, and so that makes me sound really horrible, but I'm just not. Brenda's our heart. I am not. That's why we're partners. But the idea of being able to have that checkout point, right, to go, we have to go to this point because at this point now you're taking me to the emotional side where I don't know if I can give you the sound advice, I think is probably one of the most powerful things, because I think everyone needs a checkout point, because I think that's really hard.
It can be helpful too, is to empower somebody else in your life to check in on you. Because we need that too.
Yeah.
And it may be somebody at home, it may be somebody else at work, but find somebody that will not exactly hold you accountable, but at least check in on you to make sure you're doing okay too.
We had one chief of staff, and she was really young, and she created a culture within her team. Well, she and her team, I should say, where every day in their huddle they had a check-in. And they could say, today, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm not doing so great. I need some pillows, was their cue. So I need some soft places to land. And their team was so tightly connected. And I said, well, is it always the same person that needs pillows? And they're like, no, not at all. And it switches and people just respond. And for that team, Rick, they could say, I need to be checked on today. I need support. But they've made that culture where that's the accepted norm.
That's a great story, Lisa, and speaks a lot to our teams. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So, guys, we are at 7:53. So, one question that could benefit all of us that I want to make sure we ask. One more before we get to those.
Hey, Cheryl, I love your text. I'm stealing that. I need pillows.
We all need pillows.
I love that. Lisa, there's several people who want to know, again, your quote came from whom? I'd love to have you send that over so I can send it out to everybody.
Yeah, I can send it. It's Virginia Satir. Look her up. She's got all these videos where she did family therapy, and she was radical because none of this was happening. People were only treating the individual, and you think about dysfunctional families, right? And she would go in there and really work with those dysfunctional families, and she was fearless. So she's one of my favorite people. Virginia Satir, Satir.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, one more question. Does anybody want to raise a hand or put something in the chat that we will grab onto?
If you don't, I have something. Because, Catherine can never shut up in any of these. But no, so I do think checking in on each other is really important. And so I will say, the Bridge Club is here for you. Fridays at 5 p.m. for our happy hour, virtual happy hour, quarantine happy hour. If you need a break, we're here for you for that. So I really want to make sure that everyone knows we mean that from the bottom of our hearts.
Yes. And no registration required. Just go to the website, click the link.
Just show up. But here's the thing. Brenda and I have made a commitment to make you laugh at least 3 times. So the pressure is on. If you need that little pick-me-up, but I know that's not enough to solve what's really going on, and I think this conversation is really powerful and important, but just know that At the end of this, if you need anything, you have both Brenda and I's email addresses. If you don't, it's our first name, Brenda@thebridgeclub.com or Catherine@thebridgeclub.com. We will get you in contact with Lisa. We will get you in contact with Dr. Kris. We will get you whatever you need, because now is the time. We have, according to the president now, 30 more days. So, and then it's going to go beyond that. So there's many people who need assistance and help. So just know that we are here to help you out.
It's just like one giant virtual group hug. That's what we do.
You can't hug in person anymore. You have to do it this way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do this. Let's have a parting thought from Lisa and Dr. Kris. And then Dr. Kris is going to give us our toast to send us off into the evening. So Lisa, you were about to say.
Yeah, I just want to say I am just awed every day by all of those on the front lines that are out there working, and our pet healthcare providers especially. And I have 9 pets, and I had one of my dogs needed a toe issue that was really painful, and it wasn't going to kill her, but it was killing her. And I just am so appreciative, so appreciative from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for what you do every day, and especially during these days, and I mean that. So thank you.
Agree. Dr. Kris, anything you would like to say as a parting thought?
I think most of mine will be in my toast.
Okay.
But I too can't thank people enough, because I see the work and I hear the stories from the people that we're helping, and the pets that we're just providing that peace of mind to the owner, and the work that you do every single day matters. But most importantly, you matter.
That's
fantastic. And I want to thank you. So take care of yourselves so that you can continue to do what you love, and the people that you serve will greatly benefit from that. So thank you for that. But to a toast. Are we going to toast?
Yeah, we have
ready?
It helps me know when
we have to.
So it's important.
So everybody grab a cup. So man, I thought about, there's so many people that I admire. Maya Angelou, I love RBG, but this one statement came to me, and it was Barack Obama actually stated it at Martin Luther King Memorial back in 2006. And he said, through words, he gave voice to the voiceless, and through deeds, he gave courage to the faint of heart. And when I think about what we do every day, and I think about the ASK program, and really creating that culture to where it's safe, we're kind of making the invisible visible, because we all know compassion fatigue is real, depression is real, suicide is real. And through bringing this program to light, we're creating a pathway for those that are maybe scared, but giving them some courage to say, you know what, I need help. And it's just one more life that we can impact every day. So to that, thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
Cheers. That may go down in the history books. I'm not going to lie. No pressure, but our toast kind of means something. And so we kind of push them out. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that one.
Excellent.
So cheers to all of you. Thank you very much for coming this evening.
Yes.
If you're new to the Bridge Club, we hope we get to see your faces again. If you need anything, as Catherine said, reach out to us. And a big thank you to Lisa and to Dr. Kris and to Banfield for helping us to make this conversation possible this evening. We love you all and hope you have a great evening.
You guys,
humbly, thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys.